So there's a scene from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World that reminded me a lot of Vin's fight with Zane. So in Scott Pilgrim, Scott is completely overwhelmed fighting the vegan ex-boyfriend.
Isn't he overwhelmed in the whole movie?
Yes.
Okay.
But in this one, the evil ex-boyfriend is a vegan and has vegan mind powers, and can read Scott's mind, his telepathy, all this stuff. But the point is that his superpowers are somehow related to him being vegan. So at the end of this fight scene, Scott offers vegan Chris Evans. Scott Pilgrim, played by Michael Cera, offers vegan Chris Evans let's drink to your victory. Soy latte, where he offers him a coffee with soy milk in it, and they both drink to evil vegan Chris Evans' victory. And then Scott/Vin in this case says, "Actually, muchacho, I put the soy milk in this cup, but I thought really hard about putting it in the other cup. In my mind's eye or whatever." Chris Evans, or Zane, says, "What are you talking about? You just drank half and half, baby. Freeze! Vegan police!" And the vegan police take away Chris Evans. Or in this case, Zane just dies. Because basically it's the same twist where she thinks really hard about doing one thing, and the guy who can see the future just does, reacts to, "Oh, I thought really hard about it."
But then switch. Okay.
Then there's the switch up.
So are you calling the climax dumb?
I'm saying that there's a funny way of doing it, okay? I'm just saying it's been done before. In a humorous way. It's not, there's no new original ideas. Nothing's new under the sun, yada yada. So, hello and welcome to Cosmere Casual, your casual reader's guide to the Cosmere. I'm your co-host and not at all a vegan, Nick Gorman.
And I'm your co-host, AJ Gorman.
So I guess right off the bat, this is our post-read review for Mistborn Era 1, Book 2, The Well of Ascension. But I'm just gonna, say there's a lot of things in this book that the characters don't understand yet, by the end.
And if this is your first time reading it,
yeah,
you're not gonna understand either.
Yeah.
So we're gonna give you maybe some mild spoilers.
No.
They're not really spoilers. They're just...
We're going to explain what happened. We're not going to say necessarily, we're going to keep it spoiler-free for, we're going to keep it spoilerific for Well of Ascension, but spoiler-free for the next book, Hero of Ages.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay.
But it's, so there's just, we're going to say, well, I don't know, maybe we'll come back to this in the next book a few times. So
we should probably go over a quick summary of this book. And it's definitely not going to help us at all because it hasn't been a couple weeks since we both finished the book. So, at the beginning of the book, Eland is king of a super unstable city without resources, and there are 3 other armies marching to knock down his door. Most of the book, Eland is kind of learning to be king. Vin is trying to find a traitor within their small friend group. Sazed is doing research and having a midlife crisis.
He hopes it's midlife, but he also thinks that it's the end of life.
Yeah. So to sum up kind of the end of the book and the climax, I don't know how you want to handle this. You want to sum up? You sum it up.
Sure, I can sum up. So the Sanderlanche, comes in a few different waves. There's Vin and Zane's assault on Chet. Maybe Chet's the way to pronounce it.
I think of it as Chet.
Yeah. There's the assault on Chet. Then after that, there's the duel between Vin and Zane, and then followed immediately by the Koloss assaulting Luthadel. Followed by, one right after the other, Sazed's realization that the prophecies are being changed right as Vin correctly heads to the correct location for the Well of Ascension.
And the Well of Ascension, she takes the power and then gives it up.
Like the prophecies told her to. But
she unleashed evil.
Yeah, she opened Pandora's box, basically, right?
So she fucked up.
Yeah, fucked up. Really bad.
And she realizes that as soon as she can't turn back.
Yep. But
So yeah.
So I think going through in more detail. So I guess the various lies and secrets that are revealed. I think the first one, and the one that kind of drives a lot of the tension in the book, is where's the second Khandra, right? And it's revealed right before the fight with Zane that Vin's Khandra, Orasur, was actually replaced by the Venture.
Zane's Khandra.
Yeah.
Tensoon. So the Orasur, their Khandra, they thought that was the one, the one person that they could trust because of the contract.
Yeah.
But turns out
Tensoon had killed Orasur. Yeah. So they shouldn't have trusted him, really. But there's a lot of irony with that betrayal, right? I guess to dig in deeper.
Well, it's so messed up.
So I guess logistically, right? The first time that quote unquote Orasur appears as a dog, he doesn't remember the things that Vin had just been discussing with him. So I copied down the exchange I copied down the exchange, and here it is. Is that why making this body took so much longer than you'd said? Oh, no, mistress, Orasur said. The hair. Oh, sorry, I didn't warn you. Placing fur like this takes a great deal of precision and effort. Actually, you did mention it, Vin said.
I was looking for it. For some reason, I had thought that the swap had been made like before the end of the first book.
Yeah, no. Because the exchange goes on further, where Ellen chimes in, well, what do you think of the body, Orasur? It is offensive and degrading, which Vin notes is unusually forward and direct for the Khandra. So like in this one exchange, we see that Orasur was gone for longer than he expected, is wearing a different body, forgets the details that he, just discussed with Vin. And, from before this point in the book, he's very passive aggressive. And after this point in the book, he's very direct. So it's a personality change.
But we're not looking for it because we don't know that there's a spy until after this conversation.
Right. But it's one of those things that's like on the reread, you're just like, oh my God, all these things he told you to look for between, someone unaccounted for longer than normal, and changes, and, all these things they were looking for, that it was right there.
I know Brandon's a genius and we're all idiots, but it still gets me every time. Anyways, that's because it's way too long between rereads for me on this book that I was just like, I'll just on purpose forget. That way I can just...
You can experience the twist again.
Yes.
For the very first time again.
Well, I love that. That's why I like having a lot of times between rereads.
Can I have a little bit of a soapbox moment about the Khandra?
I don't think I can stop you, so
go
ahead.
You could, whatever. So throughout the book, Tensoon, imitating Orasur, really oversells the Khandra's ability to be spies. He goes on and on about how perfectly Khandra are able to imitate the people they replace. They study their movements, their personalities, their histories,
Except that wasn't the case.
Exactly. And also, like, there's all these other characters who also, have gone through changes as well. Like we see, Doxson have a moment of vulnerability. We see Demeux, go through and, he's acting super suspicious. Yeah, right. It's in a French-inspired setting, and his name is, it ends in, what is it? It's Demeux.
Sounds ridiculous.
It is. Anyway, so he, but he's gone through a crisis of faith, right? And so that's why, he draws Vin's suspicion, right?
No. He doesn't have a crisis of faith. He wholeheartedly takes on the Church of the Survivor.
Right. Whatever. He's gone through a religious awakening of some kind.
Okay. Yeah,
right. Yeah. And so like that, people change, right? And like even between,
which is why I accept the changes that I saw in Orasur / Tensoon, because it was like, yes, we like these characters and people are going to warm up to them naturally, of course.
But that's less
just like Vin did.
That's less related to their ability to be perfect actors and just more about people aren't static, right? And people, change all the time. And so it's the best thing that the Khandra do. Well, they take the bodies. They're body snatchers, right? Like
no, they're masters take the bodies. They don't.
Okay.
They don't kill. Which is why it's so messed up. The fact, because Khandra are supposed, like the masters of the Khandra are supposed to take, kill the person for the Khandra to then eat the body.
Yes.
But in this case, I guess we don't. Do we know for certain? We don't find out until the next book about what did Tensoon do to Orasur.
Yeah, it's sort of left unsaid, I guess. I don't remember how Orisor was killed.
I don't know. It's been too long since I read the
But,
third one.
I mean,
But the fact that
we also don't know how to kill a Khandra yet. We, by the end of the book, we know how
to cause it pain and to control it.
How to take over their bodies, right? But we still don't know how to kill a Khandra.
We do find that out in the next book.
Yes.
But still, the fact of the matter is, something horrible, unspeakable happened to Orisor. And Tensoon really is not following whatever rules he's supposed to for a society.
Well, and we see that too, where Tensoon does attack a human in one of the fight scenes, and Vin
to protect Vin.
To protect Vin, right? But he's still not. Orisor would have never done that. We see that in the first few scenes as well.
Right. So not only is there another Khandra impersonating their Khandra, but the second Khandra is a terrible Khandra.
Well,
doesn't follow the rules.
Doesn't follow the rules, but Tensoon.
We like Tensoon.
I was about to say
we like Tensoon, but I'm just saying he's a terrible Khandra.
Well, there's a delicious irony about it, where yes, Tensoon is the traitor, but Tensoon is also a much more reliable ally for Vin than Orisor would have been, right? Because Tensoon reveals one of the Khandra's great secrets about being able to control with emotional allomancy.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. And then, uses that to make himself a pawn for Vin to get...
Save herself.
Yeah, to win her fight against Zane.
To save herself.
Yeah. But then he reveals that more information about the history of the Koloss as well. And that is what helps Vin to use emotional allomancy to similarly control the Koloss.
So I did remember that from previous reads. That's one of the things I did remember. And it felt like so freaking long for Vin to come to that conclusion.
But I mean... She's
fighting Koloss like by hand, brutally for so long. And I'm just like, can you just take control of their minds, please? This is way too brutal.
I mean, at the same time, like, she had pushed herself to the absolute physical limits. She was exhausted, because she'd been pewter dragging the whole time to race back to Luthadel.
Right. So, I was, yeah.
I noticed much more on this reread, her physical and emotional fatigue, how acute it is in this book compared to even the others. Where, in this book, it seems like Vin is constantly being worn down.
Yeah, I mean, war will do that to you. Siege will do that to you.
Yeah, well, right, but yeah, yes.
But I mean, it's appropriate for what's going on. Let's talk about the epigraph reveal, which is it was super confusing. All of the epigraphs were super confusing to me on the first read. So they were starting to make more sense to me on,
Do you want
3, 4, 5th reread.
Do you want to start with the punchline and then explain how all the details around it? Okay,
so the epigraphs at the beginning of the chapter heads are true, are correct.
They're
faithful.
They're Quan's prophecies Quan's writing as written in the steel.
Yes. What Sazed and Twindle study, the rubbing that they took from the steel.
The creature in the well has changed.
Yes. So he has enough power to manipulate the world, to rearrange or to rip off, make things disappear. So what the characters are reading is altered.
Yes, and the longer it has been since the time that Sazed does the rubbing, the more opportunities the creature has had to change what they're reading. Mm-hmm. And it's right there. It's the first line of the first chapter. I write these words in steel, for nothing set in metal can be trusted. Or nothing except what is something like that. It has to be set in metal for it to be trustworthy, because the creature, for reasons that we'll see next book, cannot change things that are written in metal.
Right. So I thought that the changes were going to be a little bit more pronounced, but I realized in this reread that there's really only kind of 2 discrepancies that I noticed. So the first one is that pretty late in the book, Sazed is rereading the text and notice that it calls out a holy first witness, which is something that the current day people have been calling Sazed.
Yeah, the survivorists, the folks at the Church of the Survivor, have been calling Sazed the holy first witness.
Yes. And we had read that very same passage along with Sazed earlier in the book, and it said announcer, not holy first witness. So
and
that was pretty glaring to me this time.
It was like 2 or 3 times in the first half of the book. He's, that passage refers to an announcer because it's when doing the initial rubbing, and then I think later on he's studying it with Tindwyl, and they talk about the announcer.
And by the way, this whole the creature adjusting the prophecies has happened before.
That's I'd say that's Quan's whole thesis, right? Is that Alendi fits the prophecies too well. Too well. 1,000 years ago. Yeah.
So Alendi, so the creature had altered the prophecy back in Alendi's day
before the Lord Ruler ascended.
Mm-hmm. So that whole announcer thing was already a made up thing by the creature. The announcer was not in the original prophecy.
We don't know what's in the original prophecy. We've only ever seen snippets of the original Terrace prophecies after there's been tampering done, right?
I don't know. There's definitely words of Brandon or something that announcer is totally made up.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Which begs the question: if this prophecy is so old and Alendi didn't fit the prophecy, and if we don't think Vin fits the prophecy, has the prophecy been fulfilled?
Well, or I mean, like the theory they're running under is maybe it's not a prophecy that gets fulfilled once. Maybe it's something that gets fulfilled every 1,000 years when the well fills up with power. The well becomes
mind-blowing
full.
To me.
They talk about it in the book. The well is getting full of power. The hero of ages needs to come. So the hero of ages is less of a specific person and more a role that someone needs to fill.
I don't like it.
Fair enough. You don't have to.
I want my prophecy to be
one and done.
One and done.
And that is also valid. I mean, not to go off on another tangent, but like there are, in real world theology, there are different ways of interpreting the Christian Book of Revelations. And
well, if there was only one and it didn't work out, then
yeah, exactly, right. So maybe it's wishy-washiness, but I remember learning about it, and there's a school of thought that it was supposed to specifically relate to events that were going on in the Christian church while the book was being written, and so it was more like a commentary on present day events. There's another school of thought, like it's the literal end of the world, the end times. There's another school of thought that it's
in between time,
or it's commentary on death in general, right, and how people the end of your world, right. So there's a lot of different interpretations of the Book of Revelation. It's been a long time since I've really studied it, but it's also hard because that book in particular is so full of symbolism. But if Well of Ascension is commentary on the use of prophecy within fantasy, I think it's relevant to think about how people use prophecy in religion, and especially Brandon as a Latter-day Saint Christian. It's relevant to think about that in that context as well.
He also tries really hard to look at things from outside of his perspective.
Yes, right.
Anyways, let's back up for a second. So wanted to
the creature within the well.
The creature within the well.
I'll have to censor that. There's just going to be a blank or maybe like a little beep or something. It's like, we don't know its name.
The creature was trying to use the prophecy to get Vin to the well. So propping her up and the hero of ages to be selfless and this wonderful human being that's going to go to the well and let the power free. That was all to let the creature free.
Right. So what
was happening in the epigraphs is that Koan, Rashek's uncle, knew that the prophecies were being changed in his day and didn't want Alendi, because he did believe that Alendi was a good person, and he was terrified that Alendi was going to take up the power and free it. So that is why Koan sent Rashek to do anything that was possible to keep Alendi from taking up the power and letting the creature free.
Right. So the other, so Rashek, so there's a few things, right? How did Quan know the prophecies were changing?
So he explains this. He
Yep.
says he is what is it called? He's one of the people that has
He's got a photographic
memory.
They don't call it that because they don't have, but basically he doesn't need his copper minds to
remember stuff.
To remember things. And that's important because the creature can alter what's in your copper minds.
Right, because he can see things written in metal, but not steel.
No. It can interfere with chemical abilities.
Oh.
But it
oh, because that's okay.
Yeah. It can interfere with Furukami in a sort of sense, right? And it can alter what's written on, what it's written, but it has difficulty perceiving. I guess I don't want to spoil it because it is a plot point in the next book. Suffice to say, Quan is right in that if something is etched into metal, it cannot be altered. It can't be perceived by.
But if you have
the creature.
Okay, but if you have copper mind stuff in that, copper mind can be altered.
Right. But because he's not, but Quan recognizes because of his photographic memory that he doesn't even rely on his copper mind. He's like, wait a minute, shit's changing, which is sort of the same thing that Sazed comes to too late, right?
Yeah. He should have just friggin' read.
Well, and it's right there on the first line, right? Of the rubbing is, I set these words in steel.
Okay.
Is anything not set in steel
Kawan
can't
is
be
also an idiot because, why would you?
He rambled on for too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way too fucking long.
I mean, that is
bury the lead. Why don't you?
That falls into my suspension of disbelief, right? Where it's like, all right, yeah.
Yeah, you have to
tell the story he wanted to tell. That had to happen. Okay, it's not egregious.
Except when you think back and think that was dumb.
When you take notes on it and overanalyze it, okay, then it's egregious. But no, I mean, I read it. I read this book 2 or 3 times before. It's like maybe.
Well, I was thinking about this and I thought, well, Mistborn was all about the book 1 was all a kind of Final Empire was all about twists, right? Kind of was that? No.
It was all about the trope of the Dark Lord, right? Where there's the
right.
Evil,
what if the evil emperor won? What if the good guys failed?
Right.
So in this book, it's kind of interesting because what we're reflecting back on and what we find out is that the good guys didn't fail.
Well,
Rashek succeeded. He didn't let the evil creature out.
Right.
So the good guys actually won. It was the lesser of 2 evils.
Right. There's...
So everything Brandon set us up for, what if the good guys lost? That's not actually... He kind of twists that a little bit.
He twists on twist.
Yes.
Right. Well, I think it's more like yeah. It's not like a plot twist, but it's definitely like twisting the trope around, flipping it on its head.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's always...
Well, and it's the other way that like I said before.
There's always another secret.
Yeah. So in the Final Empire was about flipping the trope of the dark looking at the trope of what happens when the bad guy wins, right?
Yeah.
And this one is like, well, what about what happens when the heroes follow the prophecy? What if they try to fit the prophecy and it's just how can that be?
What if they get misled?
Yeah. What if they get misled by the prophecy? Which is also like prophecy.
That's being, like you get that with every prophecy.
With every book that has a prophecy in it, It's like, it's not what you thought at first, but like it's not usually the prophecy lied to you.
Yeah, normally you don't have people making stuff up.
Normally it's people misinterpreting it rather
or maybe
than,
we just don't read enough of that kind of fantasy stuff.
I mean, you see that in Percy Jackson. You see that in like literal Greek mythology.
Okay, but they don't make stuff up in
no
the Percy Jackson prophecies. Thank you very much. Leave my
but they misinterpret it. They think they met the criteria.
Well, yes, yes.
Right. So it's like, well,
that's just the nature of prophecies in general. Yeah.
Right.
You had a vibe check?
Yeah. No, I feel like this is the Empire Strikes Back of the Mistborn series, right? Where maybe unlike
for those of us who are not
I'm gonna explain.
No, but Empire Strikes Back is which one was that?
That's the one where the heroes can't catch a break and it ends on a really sour note, and Luke gets his hand cut off and they're on the run.
This is episode 2?
5. The second, and when it was released. It's the Empire. Yes, it's a.
Sorry. Episode 5, yes, that's correct. It's the second one in the
in release order. It's
the second one in release order. Yes. Okay. I do understand. 5. Yes. Okay. Sorry. You can start over. And now I understand the Empire Strikes Back. Go for it.
The Empire Strikes Back of the Mistborn series. It's definitely the bleakest of the books. The heroes cannot catch a break, and it ends with the bad guys on top, right?
I kind of like this book.
Well, yeah, but
I also like the Star Wars one with the pod racing too. I like that one.
But that's not.
I don't know. I like the focus on the political intrigue in this book.
Yeah.
I like watching Elin grow into an emperor. I like Vin and her relationship develop with who we now know to be Tensoon. Like I like doing that.
So there's a political question that runs under, that is the undercurrent for this whole book, and I guess there's a couple of them, right? Where the only thing people agree on is that they don't like the guy in charge, right? And that's
Elin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it resonates with today's current political environment.
Well, whoever likes the person in charge?
I know, right? But and that makes it very challenging to set up a stable government, right? Post a major regime change, right?
Right.
Ellen tries really hard to create a fair government, and it's just incredibly unstable, right? Because nobody ever likes the guy in charge, and he didn't give himself enough power.
Right, and setting up a new government while you're under siege and have no resources.
Yeah, it's just
not exactly a recipe for success.
Right. Then the other, and I think more philosophically meaty, is what would you give up for security and safety, right? And it's,
for the ska, a lot.
Exactly. And it's, they're so used to being oppressed, right? They're so, they get a taste of freedom. But then suddenly, a few armies come up and it's like, well, shit, let's sell out to the one who's not going to kill us.
Mm-hmm. Which, makes sense.
It's rational, but it's also it's hard, right? And how you could risk, because they give up, they're before they're willing, when Straff first shows up, they're going to try to give up without a fight, right? Even though they maybe could win, as it turns out, later after the fact, they kind of do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's they're not willing to risk anything for their freedoms. And the main characters in the book are.
Which is kind of who you want to be in charge, but yeah.
Depends. I want people to be in charge to be the ones who reflect my values.
I suppose. Yeah.
And they don't, it's a fantasy book, and there's a big,
everything kind of works out.
Yeah, everything kind of works out. Not, there's lives lost and everything like that, but it's still, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's definitely a theme. It's definitely an undercurrent that keeps coming up, though. That's all.
Yeah, I guess I don't feel like this book is bleak. I do feel like that it's constant. Like there's never kind of a break mentally in the book. I do feel that, but I don't feel like it's bleak.
Maybe I'm projecting. I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe on another reread we can revisit.
So the other reason why I have that vibe around this book is kind of Vin's character arc within it. And I know that sort of segues nicely into, you wanted to talk about the different, characters and their arcs. But something that I noticed is that there's a ton of paranoia in this book. In the Final Empire, Vin spent the whole book learning to trust people. In this book,
she gets tested on that.
Well, she regresses, right? And it's, progress isn't steady, right? You have setbacks. And, like I said before, there's an irony in it, in that the one person, she became paranoid because she was worried about the Khandra traitor, who turned out to be a much more valuable ally than anybody else could have, seen coming. So there's an irony there. But even still, her, as she goes through the book, she starts doubting her self-worth. She starts doubting her suitability as a partner for Ellen, even though they're madly in love with each other.
I don't know about madly, but
yeah.
Brandon doesn't do madly.
the romance is a little bit tell don't show, but anyway, and there's one moment in particular that stuck out with me about how she's backtracking is she's talking with Orisur about why she stayed with Kamon even though he was abusive and beat her to the point of her being near death, and that really just it stuck out with me, and like she's getting back into that mentality of she can't trust anybody. She is she's pulling back into her into herself. She's retreating, and she's doing what she can to sort of weather any sort of abuse that might be coming her way.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I didn't actually have notes about talking about Vin, but it's because if you read the annotations,
Which I didn't.
Brandon talks a lot about this.
Ah.
And so you're hitting the nail on the head with you're getting exactly what Brandon wanted you to get out of this.
Well, and that's like her recognition that she has backtracked. It's a major, there's a turning point for her, and it's why she, right before she has the fight with Zane, right? She's, they've assaulted Chet's, manor. They're, preparing to basically go out on the run, go find the Well of Ascension, in the north, where they've been lied to and think that the Well of Ascension is. And she's getting ready to go with Zane because, two Mistborns, oh boy, they'll find it. They'll nothing's going to stand in their way, basically. But then she goes and she pulls a vial out of her pocket and she sees Zane start, right? And she realizes that he doesn't trust her, and she's surrounding herself with mistrustful people, and Ellen would never, Ellen trusts her.
Yeah.
And so when she realizes that she's giving up on all the progress that she made, all the wonderful people she'd surrounded herself with, and she, that's what causes her to say, wait a minute, I don't want to be around people like you, Zane. And then that leads to their, fatal duel.
Which is... You're really glad at that point because especially on the rereads, you like get to that point in your book and you're like, Vin, you're being so dumb.
Well, I in no
like
read
Vin,
through,
I understand where you're at.
In no read through have I liked Zane. I
don't. You're not supposed to.
I know, but like there's.
So I feel like on previous reads, I had kind of made up in my mind that Vin liked Zane, and I realized on this reread that I was kind of just making that up in my head. Like there's, other people think that she's falling for Zane. Like there are hints towards that, but like there's nothing in her thoughts.
Don't they say right as they're about to fight each other, something about I love you or something like that?
Well, he assaults her while they're fighting.
Yeah.
He kisses her. Yeah.
Yeah. It's icky.
Yes. But like there's nothing, all of her thoughts really surround not being right for Elend, not, she does think about being with Zane in the sense of like we're Mistborn, like it makes sense that
they've got
we would
so
hang
much
out.
in common.
They have something in common, and like it would be easier to just kind of not be with him romantically, but just like spend like more of her time with Zane. But yeah, she never really thinks about him romantically. That's all stuff that I think I made up in my head, and that a lot of us kind of just infer just because we're used to just thinking about everything romantically. And
I think there's something about the marketing of this, of Mistborn Era 1 as pseudo YA. And I think this came out around the same time as the Hunger Games, so it's, you're used to that YA love triangle.
Yeah. Especially if it's between brothers, half brothers.
Between two half brothers, or maybe a vampire and a werewolf, or
oh goodness,
okay. It's just something we're prepped for, I guess, and recognizing a trope that maybe wasn't there.
Yeah. The other thing that kind of irked me about, well, not necessarily irked, but like the whole book, like Vin and Elend are just on completely separate tracks.
Well, I mean, that relationships
they're
go through
like
that.
Not spending time together. They are thinking about each other constantly, but like they're never together. And like it's frustrating, but it's also like a good way to kind of show, not tell, like what they're feeling about they're frustrated that they're not spending time together. But they also feel like, well, we have to do these things. We can't spend time with each other. There's more important things.
Are we still talking about Elend and Vin?
No, we're talking about us now.
This sucks having kids, sucks having, elderly family members.
Yeah. Anyways, let's bring it back. But the shining moment of that kind of feeling is, the scene with both of them coming to Sazed separately, but at the same time of how do I get back together with the other one?
Yeah.
And it was really cute. It was definitely only like you're only ever gonna see that in a novel kind of a thing. But
well, actually, you bring that up. There's a scene like that in Invincible season 2.
Okay, well that's another.
I know it's okay. So you only see it in a fiction
fiction product. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so adorable.
Anyways,
that was a shining moment. It was really cute. It was like one of the only like feel good love scenes that wasn't immediately followed up by, well, you guys just fucked yourself. With the letting the creature free. Yeah. So that was really cute scene. And also just so typically says it that he's not really helping them necessarily, but he did comment on the fact like, well, you two are more alike than you think. And that's as much as he would kind of reveal.
Can we talk about Sazed for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just noticed in this read through, so it's sort of a meme in the community that if you just interject, I think, that's a very Sazed way of speaking.
And previously, we didn't necessarily know if that was a Sazed thing or a Terraceman thing, but
it
after
definitely
meeting...
I would say, because Tyndall does the same thing, and so does Quan. Quan, pounding or etching words by hand into a steel plate, takes the time to write, do I have it written down in my notes? He adds as something about like he's a good man, but a ruthless one, I think. It was something like that. And it's just like, oh my God, you're trying to express, you're hand etching these words, painfully, and you're still taking that. And it's the same way.
All creatures of our environment,
I guess. But also it's like, I don't think that in real life, what's the way language drifts, I don't think you'd express uncertainty in quite the same way using the same filler words in 1,000 years. But it is a nice touch that, he's a Terraceman.
Well, the thing that I wanted to talk about with Sazed was that in the first book, he seems like definitely kind of a side character.
Yeah.
And I think if you were to have made a prediction after reading the first book, okay, who are we going to focus on in the next book? Sazed probably wouldn't have been at the top of your list.
Well, I mean, we still focused on Vin.
Right, but I'm kind of impressed with, for how much Sazed takes up in this story that Brandon kind of held back in that first book.
Well, I mean, his role as a steward,
Yeah.
It was, Yeah.
I mean, his life does dramatically change, and he, is worth bringing to the forefront for this book, I think. But I
still feel like
it's an interesting thing.
I think he's solidly the B plot line, where the A is what are they doing about the siege and the armies at their door.
Yes, I suppose.
If I'm being honest, I know the Well of Ascension is the name of the book and like key to the final climax of the book. I feel like that's like the C plot line, where A is what the heck are they doing about the siege and having a stable government. B is, Sazed, going off and researching what's going on with the mists, and all the things Sazed does. And then the C plot line is, Vin's got mysterious thrummings, she hears things when she burns bronze, and there's a mist spirit following,
Well, that's the whole point, because I think his whole point is kind of like, are they seeing the forest through the trees?
Fair enough.
Because for most of the novel, they were not. I mean, they were ignoring from the very first chapter or two, we heard about the mists killing people, and no one ever really focused on that until the end.
Fair enough. Except Sazed. Sazed focused on it.
Sazed focused on it at the beginning, and then didn't really do anything about it for the entire book until the end.
Let me correct myself. Sazed focused on it, I think.
Oh God. But the most fascinating thing about Sazed in this book was his relationship with Twindle.
I think.
I love her.
Yeah.
I love the fact that opposites attract.
I think their romance was better than Vin and Ellen's, if I'm being honest. It was a little bit more, it's obviously shorter.
it's a little bit more
It's
kind
more
of tragic
tragic.
Romeo and
Yeah.
Juliet kind of a thing.
Not just because she died.
I mean, she only
doomed
stayed
from the
for
start.
Sazed,
Yeah.
and so it's, kind of his fault that she's dead.
I mean,
Kind of. I mean, he just certainly feels that
that's
way.
he feels that way. Yes, that doesn't mean she made her own choice.
She did.
I was about to say it's not his fault. He didn't want her to.
Yeah. But I just love them. I love her. I'm sorry that she died. I really would have liked to have seen more of them, more of her.
Yeah.
So that's a little frustrating. But considering, my strong opinions of Brandon writing romance relationships, did you feel kind of the spark between them, or did you not?
Yes. It wasn't overwhelming, right? There was a little bit of a star-crossed lovers. It's like, well, they were afraid. They're afraid to tell each other how they feel. And then Breeze comes in and soothes their emotions, plays on some Marvin Gaye.
I felt it.
Okay.
I think he did a really fantastic job setting their relationship up.
Yeah.
Breeze and Aldrian,
No.
not so much.
Their
It's still kind of confounding.
Their romance gives me the icks. I don't like it.
That too.
Oh.
I'm wondering if she's actually older than she's kind of gives the illusion of. Still, that age gap's got to be pretty big.
I don't like the trope of, this young seductress, going after an older man. Like, it's not how it works.
The only thing, that saves it is that one chapter that we get from Aldrian's point of view. I don't even know if I'm saying her name right. Probably
I was
not.
about to say, there's no D in her name.
Alrian
or something like that.
The one thing that saves it is her, that one chapter, and the fact that she portrays herself as pretty smart and savvy, and actually reflects on the fact that she does actually genuinely love Breeze. Do you not remember that? You're staring at me like I'm making this up.
You're not making it up. I don't remember very vividly. It didn't make that much of an impression on me. Like, I remember that happened. I'm just like...
Well, she convinces her father to go back to save him.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's the whole, like...
I don't like it. Yeah.
We see... this is bad. We see more of her in the next book, right?
I think so.
Okay. I can't remember
either.
I don't remember a lot of the third book.
Yeah, I would say I haven't... Yeah.
I really just remembered, like, the last climactic scenes.
Yeah. There's another exchange with Ariane and Vin that actually annoys me. Are we going into the things that annoy us about the book, or are we still talking about character arcs?
Well, we didn't talk about Eland or Zane.
Okay, I'm gonna give you one. I'm gonna talk about Ariane a little bit more, and then we can go back and talk about Vin and Zane and Eland.
Okay.
There's this. There's a couple of times in the book. There's Vin is described like, oh, you're so amazing. You've got this great reputation because you're so mysterious and hide out all the time and run away from the limelight. And it's most explicitly when Ariane is confronting Vin about it after she's hiding out, basically from the Church of the Survivor in the dress shop.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's not the way things work, right? Like, if Vin, like in the real world, like, yes, Vin killed the Lord Ruler and she would be a celebrity because of that. But people get 15 minutes of fame all the time and then fade into obscurity, or at least, don't have people mobbing them all the time. Like, she should just be able to hide out, right? It's, maybe part of it is because she's got this posse trying to take credit for her and, use her as the knife. Basically, Zane's point about her is that she's basically the deterrent about don't attack Luthadel, don't attack Eland's government, because we've got this, we've got Vin, the super weapon there.
Yeah, I mean, if the current government's kind of pushing that narrative, and then you also have Ska. I mean, we don't have a society like the Ska, so I don't know.
And she does have a role in the religion, and that's so I could see someone being an unwilling object of a cult, but it's still, I feel like that those scenes ruin my suspension of disbelief a little bit, where I'm just like, that she should be able to hide,
Yeah, but I think more of the point of the narrative is the fact that she takes ownership. She comes out of the shadows because she kind of,
right.
Because in the last book she was, portraying someone else.
Yeah.
And that, that she has grown up and grown into someone who can go out and speak to people and as herself.
I mean, public speaking is scarier than death for a lot of people.
And it's not easy.
I know. I say that half in jest, but also like mostly earnestly.
Yeah.
I guess I don't like it. There's a trope that's similar to that though, where like, oh, I'm gonna be this, dark, cool, edgy, brooding person, and everyone's gonna fawn over me. It's like that's not how it works in real life. If you are a wallflower and you try to be edgy and dark and brooding, no one's gonna pay attention to you, right? Like you're just do your own thing.
Well, I mean,
I say that as a
This is also the dark ages. They don't have social media. They don't have.
All right.
I don't even know if they have newspapers. I don't know. I mean, all the information is just spread by word of mouth, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, they
Well,
probably
so
have
how
newspapers, but most of the Scott can't read. So
I was about to say. So anyway, so how do they recognize Vin?
well, she does show up to court. Like she does show up next. She is a public figure. All right, let's talk about Eland.
Okay, let's talk about Eland.
His transformation is awesome. I like the whole setup that Twindle does where, she just rags on him and he just takes it and does not care. And he's just like, whatever. Like, she's complaining about me. She's giving me shit and just takes it. And then as soon as she mentions Vin, he comes out swinging.
Yeah.
And I love that Twindle uses that as a way to convince him to do what she says.
Yeah.
So I love the way that arc went. I don't know about the whole white uniform thing because I'm like, okay, I don't care how many precautions that you take. There's no way that uniform is gonna look clean enough,
right?
Once you step outside,
especially because
for it to be worth it.
Are the ash falls intensifying yet? I think
yes.
Yes, because the ash falls are intensifying. Ash was already everywhere anyway. Right?
Yeah. So it's just like I get the kind of the vision, symbolism. Yeah.
He's the pure noble leader.
But like, if you can't pull it off, which is impossible to pull off in this world, then I don't know. I don't like it. I don't think that was my suspension of disbelief. And I love the natural transition. I think Brandon did a really good job of transitioning Eland into kind of this wishy-washy figure into someone who really takes a stand, gets people to do what he wants them to do. Kind of, I think that transition went really well for me.
I've never actually seen Queer Eye or Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. Does it work like that?
I have not watched it either.
Okay. I wonder. Readers, listeners.
That's also reality television. So,
well,
I mean, is any of it true? Anyways.
I that's where I thought you were going when you talk about, Ellen's transition from a slob into the king. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like a queer. You went somewhere different. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
I don't know. If anybody out there has watched Queer Eye, let us know how that comparison makes out. And his relationship with Twindle is delicious.
Ellen's?
Yeah.
Huh, okay.
Like the fact that even after he loses kingship, he just still like bosses her around because.
Well, she's in his camp.
In his house. Yeah. Yeah. Which I love it. Yeah. It's awesome.
Because by that point, he's, he's graduated, I guess, from her, training
Well, I think
program.
that was his final exam. Like, even, all right, so now that you're not king anymore.
Are you still going to be king?
Are you still, who are you now? And I think he proved to her that she altered him for once and for all.
Okay.
It really stood out to me on this reread of Eland ignoring the city for the first half of the book. Like, I didn't really notice or think about it on previous reads, but remembering that he was going to get kicked out, I was like, like all the little clues and all little side steps, of him ignoring the city really stood out to me this time.
I mean, it just didn't seem that important.
Well, it wasn't to us as the reader.
Yeah, and nor to him.
And we didn't realize that he could be kicked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was definitely something easy to not notice. But I did notice this time, which win for me. I actually noticed something, which doesn't happen often.
So there's a few moments that I really liked involving Ellen. Can I interject with those?
Well,
you can. All right, we'll circle back to mine.
Okay. How do you feel about Eland being out of Luthadel when Vin takes the crown for him? because I feel kind of uneasy about it. I'm like, so you're just letting Vin like kick everyone's ass and you're not even like nearby?
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, I hate to say it, but it's kind of emasculating. But I mean,
He's not a warrior.
I know he's
right?
not a warrior, but he's not even like, he's still like 2 days away.
So generally kings have generals and armies who fight on their behalf, right? And it's,
Yeah, but then they're already king. They already conquered.
Yeah.
They're already in charge.
But he's not, I don't, he's not saying that he's the warrior, right? It would be different if you were saying that he's the warrior and that gives him the right to rule. It's, basically, she goes in, she kicks everyone's ass, takes everyone's
and then hands it over to Eland.
And says that she gets to pick who rules. And she picks Eland.
I don't know. The whole thing just it makes me a little uneasy. Didn't like it.
Yeah.
It feels weird.
Yeah. It is, right? It is uneasy.
I wonder if we would feel differently if we grew up in a different country. We probably would.
So Ellen's first attempt was like a limited monarchy, with it was mostly, a democracy, right? Or a republic, right? People voted their representatives who had power over the monarch. It's been a long time since high school. Right? But that failed. And so what happens then? He gets kicked out of town. Then his one person army goes in, takes over by force, and then he rules with the backing of the military. Like, that's not that unusual.
I know, but that doesn't mean I like it.
Oh no, it's terrible, right? And it's it represents a compromise on his morals, right? He's got this advanced political theory, can't get it to work. So then he that's where he goes back to, is he's the emperor, and he rules by the consent of the military, not the people anymore. The military being Vin.
Yeah, it's just kind of seems a bad taste in my mouth.
It is a failure. Right?
Yeah, it is. Okay, circle back to what you wanted to talk about.
Oh, there's a few really good moments with Ellen. One of them is, Ellen the bookworm, where I lost track of time for 2 hours. There were books involved, and it's Brandon speaking directly to his audience, because anybody who reads a lot of Brando Sano in particular is like you get to the climax of the book, you maybe have 10% of the book left. It's a few hundred pages, but it's 2 a.m. But I'm not going to put the book down.
Yeah, you can't get to sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Your eyes may be drooping, but you can't sleep either.
Yeah, so definitely speaking directly to his audience there. Then there was something Ellen said to Sazed. I didn't write it down this time. But
there's not always a whole lot of fan service in...
There's a few key moments.
There's a few fan service, but it's...
Yeah. There's another one, I think, in one of the Stormlight Archive interludes later on in the series. There's a little bit more fan service in Stormlight, especially later in the series. But there's another thing that Ellen says to Sazed. It's like, that's profound, I think, as anything I've ever heard. You should write that down and put it in a book, Sazed. That's, he's patting himself on the back. Brandon Sanderson is patting himself on the back through his characters.
Wouldn't you?
I would do it. See, the problem is that I wouldn't know what's good enough to, out of things that I write, to what's worth patting myself on the back. I have a skewed opinion of myself, clearly. Then third, there's a moment of dramatic irony where Ellen is talking to Vin about they're trying to figure out what the deepness is, where Ellen says, I haven't heard any reports of monstrous incarnations of evil rampaging across the land.
But you have.
Well, like, we the reader know that the mist? What the fuck is, that's one of the more alien things about this world, right? And, off screen, we know Sazed is off trying to figure out why the mists have started killing and incapacitating people. And then, so there's that juxtaposition that makes it, clear to us, the reader, that, the mists are somehow related to the deepness if they're not all that the deepness is, right?
Nah. And I never made that connection until it was explained to me by the end of the book.
And then
I cannot put two and two together.
Because the depictions in the first book, in the Final Empire, is when they.
I do remember Vin looking at a statue in
and the Lord Ruler is standing over something vague and nebulous.
Mist-like.
Like maybe a mist or a fog, that's supposed to represent the deepness. So it's like, the mists, or the mists are the deepness. or something about the mists not being, not behaving like they had been, right?
Yeah, but Brandon leaves clues, and I can't put them together.
Yeah.
Not until like the fourth reread.
So did you want to talk about Zane and his arc?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know who likes Zane. I mean, Zane is just a very tragic character. I mean, he is. I mean, he was...
Tragic characters are supposed to be mostly good with one fatal flaw.
Okay.
He's
Zane...
mostly bad with almost nothing redeeming about him.
There's not much good in his life to have led him to be a good person. I mean, he is a child of one of Straff's mistresses, which he has a lot of mistresses simply to try to get as many Mistborn and Allomancer children as humanly possible. Like, he didn't get to grow up in a big family, a fancy house. And don't forget the fact that not only do you have to have the genetics to be an Allomancer, but you also have to be, quote unquote, broken.
You have to snap.
You have to
S.
snap, which means you have to be, like, go through, like, a traumatic time experience, whatever. So it's not like Straff, even if Straff for some reason wanted to treat these children nice, that would be contrary to the whole point of having these children. So yeah, Zane had to be put through the ringer to even snap to become a Mistborn. So it was a tough time, and then growing up under Straff, and then we kind of see that Zane is kind of communing, or has a voice in his head,
yep.
Which kind of does not sound all that intelligent throughout most of the book, but then as soon as Zane's kind of dying,
kill him.
All of a sudden, that voice in his head becomes a lot more...
Oh, Zane, you were never insane.
A lot more sensible, intelligible, and we will have to wait until the next book to talk about...
Connecting some of those dots. Yeah. We don't have the full picture yet.
But if you were very confused about why that voice changed at the end, that was very much intentional, and it will be explained later, of course. But yes, so Zane was not insane. There was an outside force speaking into his brain, which I thought he actually did pretty well for having that voice in his head.
Yeah. No, I'm not, Yeah, I don't know.
Also, Zane is brilliant.
What?
He's brilliant.
What? Expand. Tell me more.
He orchestrated that whole war and manipulating Vin, like, very, very subtly. Like, it was his idea to swap the Khandras. Like, all of the brilliant plans in this book, if you're looking for a substitute for Kelsier from the first book for brilliant plans, it's not Vin, it's not Eland, it's not anybody, it's Zane.
That's fair. Except Zane sucks.
That doesn't mean he's not brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
Apparently not as brilliant as, oh gosh.
Describe the character you're thinking of.
The crotchety old guy, the general.
Oh, Clubs?
Clubs. Apparently not as brilliant as Clubs, because Clubs, knew right away that, hey, if the other two armies leave, now that Chet's, if Chet's army's gone, then as long as Straff leaves, it allows the Koloss to take over the city, and then Straff can come up and clean up after the Koloss.
Yeah. I
mean, Clubs got that right away.
Yep.
And Zane got that because he told his father, pack up, retreat for a little bit, and then return.
Yep.
The other thing that was a little bit confusing to me with Zane on my first couple of reads is the fact that he wanted to die.
Yes.
His kind of plan A was he and Vin go somewhere. He tries to escape Straff. He tries to escape the voice in his head that, he and Vin can get away and have a better life. But I think he kind of always knew that plan was going to fail.
Yep.
So his plan B, which was more practically his plan A, was to have Vin kill him.
Yep.
Which you don't really get until kind of that end fight scene, I felt like.
Yep.
So I was a little confused about that, but that's what's happening, is that he kind of intends for Zane to kill him.
For Vin to kill him.
Sorry, for Vin to kill him.
Yep.
I do think Zane was in love with Vin. I don't know if it was more, I think he thought it was a romantic kind of thing, but I think he just thought of her as kind of his savior, whether to bring him to another, better life or to kill him, that he loved her as his savior, I think.
So I know the voice in Zane's head says that Zane was never insane. I think it's more that he was not hearing an imaginary voice in his head. I do believe he is.
He wasn't insane to begin with, but dealing with the voice.
Right. I was about to say, I do think he has a number of issues that, a number of traumas, like you said. And so I think he might think he's in love with Vin, right? I do think it's more that he's in love with the idea of Vin.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely got her up on a pedestal in a way that makes me cringe a little bit, where like he's got Vin up on a pedestal. He's in love with an idealized version of her. Yeah.
Kind of playing off Zane, kind of the one, plot that we see Zane time and time again is, he's kind of around the edges of all of these attempts to kill Straff, his father.
Right, but they're more, yeah.
And you think eventually that, they're finally going to kill Straff with the shared mistress between them, that they got him hooked on a
what was the name? Hooked on a drug, a stimulant.
Yeah, but what's the word I'm looking for? One that addictive.
Yeah.
They got him hooked on an addictive substance, and you think like, they're finally gonna kill him with the withdrawal and everything, and then it's just kind of heartbreaking as the reader to find out that no, he kills the mistress, strangles her, and then he wakes up.
Yeah.
So like, you think that they killed him, and no.
Well, and that's, I think, one of the most satisfying moments in this book is Vin blasting into the sky and then
cleaving him in two.
Yeah, I'm not even sure cleaving into two. It's the book says that his horse was cleaved in two, but Straff is just somewhere in the gore, right? He was so hateable. It's very satisfying when.
And that's kind of what Brandon, says in his annotations. He's like, no, it wouldn't have been right to have the mistress kill Straff.
Yeah.
Vin needed to do that, so I would have been fine with the mistress killing him, but
yeah.
I also don't write books, so.
If I'm being honest, I feel like Straff almost feels like a character out of Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire.
Song of Ice and Fire, definitely.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of parallels between him and
Tywin
Lannister. Yeah. Tywin Lannister.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are our characters. The other things that are confusing about this book are the mist creatures. So do you kind of want to go over the mist creatures, or you think that's
I think
spoilers?
That's a different episode.
That's spoiler.
Yeah. I guess the one thing, to emphasize about the mist creature is that it uses allomancy whenever it shows up on screen. It soothes everybody's emotions. And it tries to encourage Vin.
We'll have to talk about it more in a different book.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Koloss. So I think I mentioned in previous episodes that the Koloss were mentioned, but didn't really dive into those a whole lot. It was all in preparation for this book where you actually got to see the Koloss on screen. And I think it's a kind of a big payoff. And we will continue to learn more about them in book 3 and even in future books.
Yeah.
They are absolutely horrific creatures to think about.
They are. I
do not like imagining them.
They're definitely inspired by ogres, right? From they're brutes. They're super strong, humanoid, but yeah.
They're just nasty and uncomfortably close to us as
well, and like they're described in grotesque ways, right? Where the young ones are, they don't fit their skin; it sags off of them. And then the
as
older,
they grow up, it doesn't fit.
It still doesn't fit, right?
Just
but
in
it's
the opposite
different.
way.
It's just instead of having stretch marks, they just start to split, and so they've got to be constantly in pain, and which also doesn't that just matches their temperament,
Yeah. Anyways, I changed my mind. Let's not talk about them anymore.
I would say let's not talk about them.
Let's not talk about them anymore. I guess we should save Condra contracts for the next episode too, because it's kind of hard not to talk about some spoilers.
Right. I was about to say, because we learned so much about the Condra and the contracts and everything in this, but there's still a few missing pieces, so you don't really get the whole piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Right. The whole you get pieces, you start to make out a shape, but it's just not clear yet.
Yeah. So post read of the next
Yeah.
book, we will go dive into that.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to the just a couple quick hits of what we learned about the magic system in the book. In this book. So number 1, we have the introduction of duralumium.
Duralumin.
Something.
Which is actually a real metal, a real alloy. I think it's like a trademark, one, but it's like that's a real thing. It's not like atium where it's a fictional metal. It's an actual one.
I didn't know that. But anyways, that's the kind of the booster that enabled Vin to control the Kandra and the Koloss to level up against other Allomancers. We also see the introduction of a metal. I guess we're not given the name of it. There is another metal introduced to that Elend swallows to become Mistborn.
Yes.
So we'll give you the name of that next time. Is it? It's not really a spoiler to give the name, is it?
Yeah, it's Lerasium.
Lerasium.
Yes.
So we have the introduction
and
of
that
Lerasium.
one is a fictional metal.
That's fictional.
Google came to my rescue. Duralumin is, it was originally patented in 1909 by a German metallist. It's just a harder, lightweight alloy of aluminum. It's mostly aluminum with 4% copper, a little bit of manganese and magnesium. Anyway.
And we still, at the end of this book, have no idea where the atium is.
Yeah.
So that is a mystery that spans all 3 books.
Yeah. There's a few other mysteries. Like, what the fuck is going on with Marsh, right?
Yeah.
He just turns, at the start of the book, he's clearly changing, right? Where he's becoming even more, stern and quiet and,
And he freaking turns on Sazed.
And then he disappears for most of the book and shows up at the end and says, I don't know why, but I've got to kill you. Yeah.
Yeah, there are lots of questions I have with that, but we have to wait till the next book.
I was about to say, but so what's going on with Marsh? Something's going on.
Yeah, so we are not talking about that, but that's for a reason.
Yeah.
So sorry if you expected to hear more about that today. That's not happening.
Yeah.
I guess the one thing to just say is that Brandon lies. I guess you could say misleads.
What?
A lot.
Misleads?
Oh my God.
Do you have anything else?
No, I would love to hear about anything else that annoyed you for this book.
No, we already hit all of the things that annoyed me, the things that I loved. We've got all of it already.
Excellent.
Well, thank you for podcasting with me, and thank you, listeners, for listening to our podcast. If you want to send us any feedback, thoughts, or questions, please reach out to us at cosmerecasual@gmail.com. Our intro and outro music is licensed through Tribe of Noise, and the artist is Ketsa, and the song is Odyssey.
Yeah, and until next time, keep your wits about you.